twilight, these sisters discuss the paranormal and the unnerving. They are known as the ParaSisters.
What's up, guys? I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Tristan.
And we are together, the ParaSisters. It's an awesome name. Every time I say it, I feel like it's awesome. It's awesome sauce.
It is awesome sauce.
I love it.
Because we are the ParaSisters, because we are sisters and we love paranormal.
That's right. We're a ParaSisters.
And we're a ParaSister.
I'm a dork. What can I say? Okay. So, this is our first show since Halloween. I don't know how our Halloween show went. I never even went on Facebook. Like, I don't know if you can tell that people watched it or not, but we've got a few views on YouTube, so of course go and check that out. We did a great, awesome Halloween special where I got a little bit drunk and we talked about some spooky stuff. So go check that out. I didn't eat as much candy as I thought I would, which is sad, but you know. And
me neither.
You know, I started watching.
I was so into it that I did not eat as much candy.
Yeah, I thought I was going to eat a ton of candy. And then afterwards, I started watching Hocus Pocus, and I literally today finished it. 1 week post Halloween, done. That's what I do.
That's okay. Hocus Pocus is good any time of year. Me and Jordan started watching. Me and Baby Sassy. We started watching Christmas movies this week.
Dude,
I'm so excited for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I love Christmas movies. I don't even know what it is. Like, I don't know. Anyway, maybe we'll do a Christmas special.
Yeah. Ooh. I got some good ones.
Krampus. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to talk about something that I know that you aren't necessarily a believer of. And I am on the fence because I am a huge fan of X-Files. And anybody that watches X-Files knows the turns and the twists and the plot thickening of X-Files where it's never exactly what you think it's going to be. So I've decided today to do alien abductions. And I'm only going to talk about 2 cases of alien abductions. And then a man who was a famous contactee, they call them. So he was supposedly contacted by aliens, but never abducted by them. So, like I said, you don't believe in this necessarily, but, you know, I don't know. Anybody that does...
It's not necessarily that I don't believe that if there are aliens, that they're little green men. I don't believe that, and I am a huge fan of X-Files. I absolutely love X-Files.
It's one of the greatest
I've watched that
ever.
series like probably 5 times.
Me as
the
well.
Entire series and the movies like 5 times.
Yes.
I love them.
I love the movies too. I think they're so underrated, honestly.
Me too.
Dude, so
me too. And the new series that came out a couple of years ago, loved it.
I also enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be awkward. And I think like it was in the beginning, but once they got back into it, I think it was like awesome. It's awesome. I love it. I love X-Files. I love
me too.
I love Mulder and Scully together. So anyway.
Me too. They're wonderful.
Back to our alien abductions. And before I really get started, I just want to say if you guys like this episode and any other episodes, make sure you like, share, follow. Make sure you hit that notification so that you can get all of our content. You don't have to look for it. It's out there. And we got our podcast out. So if you're driving in long distance in your car, turn us on. And that sounded really dirty, but there you go. I swear, I don't know what it is. I don't mean to be semi-pornographic, but I always end up doing it. It literally is not on purpose, but I swear.
Oh, you and your innuendos.
I know, it's sickening, actually. Okay, so I'm going to start with kind of, these are stories that are the original, highly publicized events. You've probably heard at least of one of these because it is arguably the most famous alien abduction case in the United States. So, but first, I want to talk about this guy. His name is George Adamski, and he's the famous contactee. Although as we, I think, unravel this, we'll kind of discover that maybe he's not everything he says he is. But so, George Adamski was a Polish American. He was a citizen, and he was an author who became really popular in ufology circles and to some lesser extent in popular culture because he claimed to have photographed spaceships from other planets. And I've seen one of these photos and I don't think it's real, but I've not seen any of the other ones, so maybe I'll throw them up there. So he also claims to have met with friendly Nordic alien space brothers, which I don't know what this means, and to actually have taken flights with them to the moon and other planets. Which kind of sounds insane, but he does have those photos, so I don't know. So, on November... I feel like I skipped some, but let's see what happens. I did, but it's fine. So, November 20th, 1952, Adamski and several of his friends were in the Colorado Desert, which is near the town of Desert Center, which is in California. And they supposedly saw a large submarine-shaped object hovering in the sky. And apparently this Adamski, he believed that it was for him. It was looking for him. So he leaves his friends and he heads away from the main road into the woods, I guess. And shortly afterwards... According to George, I'm going to call him George because I don't like his last name. It's too difficult. A scout ship made of translucent metal landed close to him. And the pilot of this ship, which was, I don't know how to say this because it's a Venus person or thing. I don't know. Hominoid called Orthon. Disembarked and sought him out. It's weird that he would know his name. I don't know. So George claimed the people with him also saw the ship, and several of them later did state that they saw George meeting with someone in the desert, although it was pretty far away, so they didn't see who he was talking to, I guess. But George describes Orthon as a medium height humanoid with long blonde hair, tanned skin, and wearing reddish-brown shoes, although George adds, strangely, that his trousers were not like mine. And I don't know what that means, but apparently different. And so George claims that Orthon communicates with him via telepathy and through hand signals, which... I don't know if you know a lot of stuff about aliens, but a lot of people claim that they talk to them in their minds. They don't ever use words. It's all telepathic. I don't know.
Right.
So during this conversation, Orthon apparently warns George, and that's going to be on the sound, that's funny, of the dangers of nuclear war. And later, George writes that the presence of this inhabitant of Venus was like the warm embrace of great love and understanding wisdom. So I don't know, maybe Orthon knows something that we don't know. I don't know. I think it's odd that this is 1952 and this is, just less than 10 years after nuclear bombs were dropped in Japan. So... I don't know, we'll see. So, George claims that Orthon had refused to allow him to photograph him, although being asked. Could you imagine asking, like, an alien if you could take a picture of him? But apparently Orthon refuses and instead asks George to provide him with the blank photographic plate, which George claims to have given to him. So... George Hunt Williamson, who is an associate of George Adamski's, claimed that after Orthon left, he was able to take a plaster cast of shoe prints that were left, and apparently the shoe prints contain mysterious symbols, which George Adamski claims was a message from Orthon. Now, I didn't look those up either, but I will try to see if I can find photos and add it to this thing so that people can see them.
That's really weird.
Dude, the whole thing's weird. I feel like, is this guy just delusional or what? I don't know. So, Orthon is said to have returned the photographic plate to Adamski on December 13th, 1952. And apparently when it was developed, it was found to contain new strange symbols. And I don't know what those symbols are either, but this is... I am going to put this photo up because it is hysterical once you look at it, because I think that what people think it is what it is, or really similar to this. So during this meeting, when Orthon gives the photographic plate back to George, is when George is supposedly taken the now famous photo of the scout ship, and he was using a 6-inch telescope. So at the time, people thought that it looks like the top of a chicken brooder for warming newly hatched baby chicks. So it's like a heat lamp, like it's like round, and it does look like it has like light bulbs. Like, it's actually quite hysterical. But I mean, this it's hysterical. So like, I don't know. And then like, I'm looking at the photo, and there's like a caption of the photo, and it's like, a lot of people think that it's actually a surgical light from the 40s or something like that. So I don't know.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it looks like a light of some sort. So we'll see. This is the part I was looking for before, because this is actually George's first claim that on October 9th, 1946, during a meteor shower, him and some of his friends that were at the Palomar Gardens campground witnessed a large cigar-shaped mother ship. And in early 1947, George took a photo of what he claims was that same mother ship crossing in front of the moon over the Palomar Gardens. So in summer of 47, following the first widely publicized UFO sightings in the U.S., George claims he had seen 184 UFOs pass over the Palomar Gardens on one single evening. So I don't know if this...
What?
I don't know. I feel like taking the time frame into account, because this is the 40s, and a lot of new technology was coming out in the 40s because of the war. So... did he see spaceship, like UFOs? I don't know.
When did Battle for LA come out?
What's it called?
I'm really curious. Because Battle for LA, I'm going to Google it real quick, because I'm really curious, because, like, if you say his photos are, like, ridiculous, like, it looks like a light.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it was very popular, and I'm wondering when that
right, so it's
when that happened.
I guess it's important to say that this time period, like, science fiction was through the roof. People were like obsessed with space, and this carried on way until after, you know, the moon landing too. Like, people were just obsessed with space, you know. Did you find it?
Okay, so an interesting fact that between February 24th and 25th of 1942, Battle of Los Angeles took place, where this was an actual event.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I should have added that, because I just remembered that I've heard that before. And it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but that it's part of the war, and if you don't know what it is, you should go and look it up, because it's very, very little known, I think. Like, a lot of people don't know about it, so look
right,
that
well,
up.
a lot of people have said that it was actually aliens.
Yeah, I don't...
It was extraterrestrial.
You know, I know of it. I don't know the details of the whole thing, but I know that a lot of people claim that, and then I know that, you know, the government claims that it was not that. So do we trust the government?
Right.
Dun dun dun.
The truth is out there.
It is, man. It's out there, just like us. Uh, what?
Well, I was just going to say, I just think it's very coincidental that his first sightings were in the 40s and the Battle of LA had taken place, and people were very interested in space and aliens and stuff like that. Actually, I think between the 40s and the early 60s, a lot of alien movies actually came out.
Oh yeah, people were obsessed with sci-fi. Like, they were obsessed with aliens, they were
Right.
obsessed with whatever. Yeah, obsessed. I do think it's an important note to add that this George character is, so he made a lot of claims that had nothing necessarily to do with aliens, and they weren't even, I guess they weren't his own claims, but people assumed that he worked for like this really famous astrology place, and he didn't. People called him professor, and I guess he led a lot of people to believe that he had all these graduate like things, when in reality he only had a third grade education. And he also apparently charged a lot of fees for people to come to his lectures about UFOs. So was he just trying to make money, or was he using this event or these events that happened in his life to make money? I don't know. But I don't know. We'll leave that up to you to decide, because I just tell the stories. I don't do the thinking.
I didn't mean to interrupt, sorry. I was just curious because I wanted to know when that battle took place and that time period. And what state was he in again?
So he was in California at the Palomar Gardens.
Makes sense.
And then the desert was California also. So yeah, he was in California at that time, and yeah, I think a lot of people were convinced that the battle for LA was aliens. I don't know what the evidence is for that,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people were convinced of this, you know. So
Very long.
So I think that George is the first super well-known like alien contactee. But now we're going to talk about somebody who I don't think is very well known at all, even though he has probably the first widely reported case of being abducted. And his name was Antonio Villa Boas. And I'm just going to call him Antonio because whatever. And he was a Brazilian farmer. And he claimed that he was abducted by extraterrestrials in 1957. And although some similar stories had circulated years before this, his Antonio's claims were among the first that were received the widest attention. So even though other people had said, yeah, we were abducted, his was it was international news, you know. So some skeptics today do consider the abduction story to be a hoax, although you were attacked by a cat attack. See, that's why I don't have cats.
Makes it great.
So even though people accused Antonio of this hoax, he always stuck to his story until the very end of his life. He never changed his story. It was always the same, and so his story goes a little bit like this. So at the time of the alleged abduction, Antonio was 23 years old. He was a Brazilian farmer, and he was working at night to avoid the extreme temperatures of the day, because you are in Brazil, obviously. Which, it seems weird to me, though, to harvest at night because it's dark and you just don't know, but whatever.
Can't really see anything. Yeah.
I'm not a farmer, so I don't know. So, on October 16th, 1957, Antonio's plowing his fields near San Francisco de Sales. when he saw what he describes as a red star in the night sky. And according to his story, this star approaches his position, growing in size until it became recognizable as a roughly circular or egg-shaped aerial craft with a red light at its front and a rotating cupola on top, which I think it sounds exactly like the typical flying saucer to me, you know what I mean?
Right.
So apparently this craft begins to descend and lands in a field, extends 3 legs as it does so, and I guess at this point Antonio decides that he's out, so he starts booking it. He just starts running. According to Antonio, his first attempt to leave the scene, he tried to go on his tractor, but after just a little bit of distance, the lights and the engines died, and he decided to go on foot after that because obviously his tractor wasn't working. Apparently, he didn't get very far. He is seized by a 5-foot-tall humanoid wearing gray coveralls and a helmet, which seems weird. This sounds like people are playing a joke on him, like.
Right, like ultimate troll game.
Yeah, exactly. So, this thing's eyes are small and blue, and instead of speaking like a normal person or whatever, it makes noises like barks or yelps. And then, at this point, 3 similar beings join the first, and they subdue Antonio, and then drag him inside of their aircraft. At this point, once inside the craft, Antonio says that he is stripped of his clothes, covered in head to toe with a strange gel, and then he's led into a circular or a semicircular room through a doorway that has strange red symbols written over it. And Antonio actually claimed later that he memorized these symbols and was able to reproduce them for UFO investigators. I will try to find those also. So once in this room, the beings begin to take samples of Antonio's blood, and it's strange because he's really specific that they take the samples from his chin. His chin. I don't know, man. Okay. It's oddly specific, and I feel like if you're gonna lie, why wouldn't your lie be just a little bit better? But I don't know. So.
Right. That's true. That's true. I will give him that.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it'd be like some kind of Star Trek shit where they do like the in your arm, and they've now extracted all the blood that they need, but I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. So after this,
everyone is advanced at that time.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, this was the 50s. All right. Whatever.
Yeah.
So after this, he's taken to a third room, and they leave him alone. And he says for about a half an hour, but I'm not sure how he comes to calculate this time. But I don't know. But apparently, while he's in this third room, they pump some kind of gas into the room, which makes Antonio extremely ill, like violently ill. And shortly after this, he claims that he's joined in the same room by another humanoid. However, this is a female. She's very attractive and naked. And apparently she's the same height as the others, with the same she has a small pointed chin, large blue cat-like eyes, and her hair is long and white, or like a platinum blonde. But apparently her underarm and pubic hair are bright red, which seems extreme. Like, if you could picture like bright red underarm hair, it really kind of freaks me out. Antonio says that he is strongly attracted to this woman, and they end up having sex. And during this act, Antonio notices that the female doesn't kiss him, but instead like nips him on the chin, which is weird that that's where they took the blood from. And now that's like, I don't know if that's like their their area. I don't know. It's their area.
It's weird.
It's so strange, right?
Right.
So when it's over, the female smiles at Antonio, rubbing her belly and gestures upward. And apparently Antonio takes this to mean that if there's a child, she's going to raise it in space, or she's taking the child to space, or something like that. He says that she seems relieved that their task is over, and that he himself feels really angered. He feels just anger by the situation, because he thought that he was a stallion basically for these humanoid aliens. He was so good looking. I'm gonna put his picture up too, because I don't know. Maybe he is super good looking. I don't know. They're like, see that farmer? He's the one. I don't know. So Antonio says at this point he's given his clothes back and taken on a tour of the ship by these now friendlier creatures, apparently. And apparently during this tour, he says that he attempts to take a clock-like device to kind of have proof that this happened to him. But as he's leaving, he's caught and prevented from taking this. And then he's escorted off the ship and watches it take off, glowing brightly. And by the time he returns home, he discovers that 4 hours had passed. So there's the missing time, which is prevalent and common in every single alien abduction that I've ever heard of. Everybody says that they miss time. So, although I have heard stories of missing time where aliens are not necessarily involved, so I find those interesting also.
Right. Well, too, and his tractor died, which is very prevalent in these types of stories where they have
mechanical
electrical
failure,
issues.
right?
They're at their house or with their cars or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, that's also a hallmark of abduction. So Antonio later becomes a lawyer. He gets married. He has 4 children. He never, ever, 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 ever changes or recants his story. He spends his entire life saying the exact same story. And he dies January 17th, 1991. But in the interim, he did have a lot of issues. So following the event, Antonio had claimed that he suffered from nausea, weakness, headaches, lesions on the skin, which would appear without any kind of bruising. Eventually, he contacted a journalist named Jose Martins, who had placed an ad in a newspaper looking for people who had experiences with UFOs. And upon hearing Antonio's story, Martins contacts Dr. Olivo Fontes of the National School of Medicine of Brazil. So Fontes was apparently also in contact with APRO, which is the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. It's the U.S. research group. Fontes examines Antonio and concludes that he has been exposed to a large dose of radiation from some unknown source and was suffering from a mild radiation sickness. So there is that. I don't know what that means, but
That's weird.
It is weird.
Although it sounds more like lupus.
Yeah, I mean, of course it could be other things. I don't know what the evidence is of this Dr. Fontes for radiation poisoning, but I don't know. A writer named Terry Mellison states, among Antonio's symptoms were pains throughout the body, nausea, headaches, loss of appetite, ceaselessly burning sensations in his eyes, cutaneous lesions at the slightest without the bruising, which went on appearing for months, looking like small reddish nodules, which were harder than the skin and protuberant, painful when touched, and each had a small central orifice which would yield a yellowish thin watery discharge. The skin around the wounds, and this is kind of weird to me, I don't know why, but it doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard of. But the skin around the wounds presented as a hypochromatic violet tinged area. So it would look like purple, but like shiny purple because it's hyperchromatic. Yeah, these are weird. These are weird symptoms, right? So according to researcher Peter Rogerson, the story first came to light in February 1958, and the earliest definite print reference to Antonio's story was from an April-June 1962 issue of Brazilian UFO periodical SBESDV Bulletin. I don't know what that means, but... and Rogerson notes that the story had definitely circulated between 58 and 62 and was probably recorded in print, but the details are uncertain. So Antonio was always able to recall every single detail, which is kind of abnormal or not usual with alien abductions. A lot of people don't remember everything that happened to them, but he didn't ever need to be hypnotized or nothing. I don't know if I believe this or not, but it is what it is, you know. He says it happened, and there's no proof that he's a liar, you know, so.
Right.
Yeah, so he kind of opened the door for later people to come forward though and say that happened to them. And he was kind of made famous by this. However, Peter Rogerson doubts the veracity of Antonio's story. He notes that several months before Antonio first claims this happened, a similar story was printed in November 57 issue of the periodical O Cruzeiro, and suggests that Antonio borrowed details from this earlier account, along with the elements of George Adamski's contactee stories. And Rogerson also argues that one reason why the Antonio story gained credibility was the prejudiced assumption that any farmer in the Brazilian interior had to be an illiterate peasant who couldn't make this up. That's in quotes, couldn't make this up. And as Eddie Bullard pointed out, the fact that Antonio's family possessed a tractor put them well above the peasant class. And apparently it's known now that the AVB, they call him AVB, Antonio was determinedly upwardly mobile and studying a correspondence course, and he eventually became a lawyer, like I said before. And at the point when he becomes a lawyer, UFOologists who considered him to be too much of a rural simpleton actually now say that he couldn't have made up the story because he's so respectable and bourgeois to have done so. So before he was too stupid and simple, and now he's too respectable and rich, and you know he couldn't have done that. It doesn't seem plausible.
He didn't make up anything, yeah.
By the way, I love the word bourgeois.
He is a lawyer after all.
I know. Who has ever heard of a lawyer lying?
Like,
ever. Jeez.
Me neither. I mean, they're very respectable and tell the truth all the time.
Always. I just feel like lawyers are the most truthful people on the planet. So, yeah. So, Antonio's story precedes this next story by about 10 years or so, I think. And this is the most famous story, I think, from the U.S. And this is about Barney and Betty Hill. And they are the first well-known American alien abductees. So, Barney and Betty Hill are an American couple, or were an American couple, who claimed to be abducted by extraterrestrials in a rural portion of New Hampshire from September 19th to the 20th. So obviously it was like late at night in 1961. And it was first publicized. It was the first widely publicized report in the United States. I'm not sure if people had really heard about Antonio's story or not in the United States because it was Brazil. So I think that would be interesting to know, but I could imagine that no, not a lot of people read like Brazilian articles and magazines and things like that. Although the American UFO research company like place was involved with Antonio's story, but I think back then, especially if you weren't into UFOs, you probably didn't know a lot about UFOs. So but that's just my guess.
Right,
I
that's
don't know if
probably
that's
true.
true,
Yeah.
but it's not like today. You can't just Google shit. So
Right.
the incident came to be called the Hill Abduction or the Zeta Reticuli incident because the couple stated that they had been kidnapped by aliens who claimed to be from the Zeta Reticuli system. And I actually didn't put this in, but I did read that there was a teacher who did a star chart based on drawings that Betty Hill does of where they were taken or where the aliens were from. I'm not really sure, and it does correlate with the reticulum star system. So I don't know if that has any like veracity or not, but that's what they've claimed, and I don't know. So according to a variety of reports given by the Hills, the alleged UFO sighting happened on September 19th, 1961, around 10:30 p.m. The Hills are driving back from Portsmouth. They were on vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. So just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, Betty claims that she had observed a bright point of light in the sky that moved from below the moon to the planet Jupiter, upwards to the west of the moon. And so Bernie's driving. They're driving on U.S. Route 3. And Betty thinks that this is a falling star, is what she originally thinks it is, except for the fact that it's moving upwards instead of downwards, like a shooting star would. Although, I'm trying to think of like meteors or shooting stars. They might look like they're moving upwards if you're looking at it right in the sky, but they're not necessarily,
Right.
But since it moved erratically and began to grow bigger and brighter, Betty urges Barney to stop the car so that she can get a closer look. So, and then also they decided that they were going to walk their dog, which is weird. So they stop at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Betty looks through binoculars and observes an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights travel across the face of the moon. Because her sister apparently had several years earlier said that she'd seen a flying saucer, Betty kind of thought that it might be a flying saucer that she was looking at. So Barney takes the binoculars and he observes what he reasoned was a commercial airliner traveling toward Vermont on its way to Montreal. However, he soon changes his mind because without looking as if it had turned, the craft rapidly descends in his direction. And this observation causes Barney to realize that this object was a plane, this object that it was a plane was not a plane. So, I don't know. They quickly return to the car, drive toward Franconia Notch, which is a narrow mountainous stretch of the road. So the Hills claim that they continue to drive on the isolated road, moving very slowly through the Franconia Notch in order to keep watching this object as it comes closer to them. It's now getting closer and closer. And apparently at one point, the object passed above a restaurant and signal tower on the top of Cannon Mountain and came out near the Old Man of the mountain, which I don't know what any of these are, but obviously geographical markers of some sort. So Betty testified that it was at least 1.5 times the length of the granite cliff profile, which was 40 feet long, and that it seemed to be rotating as it was flying. So, like,
Okay.
which seems weird. I don't know.
That's how you fly a saucer. I didn't even know that.
I guess that's if. Why would it be round if it's not spinning? I suppose, right?
Right. That's how they fly. I mean, that's how it gets off the ground and
Oh, they use
goes
like some
around
kind of
everywhere.
weird
But it does.
centrifugal force. They're like to keep them
Right.
flying. So the couple watch in silence as the illuminated aircraft moves erratically, bouncing back and forth in the night sky. I'm assuming they're still driving at this point because approximately 1 mile south of Indian Head, they say the object rapidly descended toward their vehicle, which causes Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. This huge, silent craft hovers approximately 80 to 100 feet above the car. It was a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. And it fills the entire field of view in the windshield. So it's big. It's huge. And Barney says it reminds him of a huge pancake. So he has a pistol. He's carrying a pistol. He has it in his pocket. He steps away from the vehicle, moves closer to the object, and using his binoculars, Barney claims to have seen about 8 to 11 humanoid figures who are peering out of the craft's windows, seeming to look at him. In unison, all but one figure moved to what appeared to be a panel on the rear wall of the hallway that encircled the front portion of the craft. It's crazy that he can see so well inside this aircraft. Like, I don't even know what to... But he does have binoculars, so he's, like, looking. I think at this point I would flip the F out. Honestly, if this was, like, real, it's really happening to me. I'd be like, what's going on?
I'm surprised it has windows.
So I'm like, were there glass in the windows? I don't know. Like, it's weird because in my mind, like, I'm literally envisioning, like, every single UFO ever, like, you know, like,
Right. That's kind of what I'm
encounters
doing.
of the third kind, like the, you know, the round. And of course they have windows in every single, like, drawing or whatever, you know, so I don't know.
Right.
Okay, so the remaining figure continues to look at Barney and communicates a message, obviously telepathically, telling him to stay where you are and keep looking. So Barney had a recollection of observing the humanoid forms wearing glossy black uniforms and black caps, which sounds kind of like S&M to me, but I don't know. I just picture, like, the little cap that the village people guy used to wear. What was he? He was a cop, but I don't know.
It's like,
I don't know. So red lights on what appear to be bat-like wing fins begin to telescope can't read, out of the sides of the aircraft, and a long structure descends from the bottom of the craft, and the silent craft approached what Barney estimated was 50 to 80 feet overhead and 300 feet away, so 300 feet and then 100 feet up, or 80 feet up. So he claims that the beings were somehow just not human. Like, he could tell that they weren't human. I don't know how, because they're wearing black leather jumpsuits and leather hats. I don't know. So at this point, Barney tears the binoculars away from his eyes, runs back to his car, and in a near hysterical state tells Betty they're going to capture us. He saw the object again shift its location to directly above the vehicle, and he drives away at high speed, telling Betty to look for the object. She rolls down her window and looks up, and almost immediately they hear a rhythmic series of beeping and buzzing sounds, which they said seemed to bounce off the trunk of their car. The car vibrates, and a tingling sensation passes through their bodies. The Hills said that then they experienced the onset of an altered state of consciousness that left their minds dulled. And then a second series of beeping or buzzing sounds returned the couple to full consciousness. And then at that point, they had realized that they traveled nearly 35 miles south, but only vaguely remembered driving this section of the road. So they they had this weird blackout. Then they recall making a sudden, unplanned turn, encountering a roadblock, and observing a fiery orb on the road in the road. So that's the story. And I don't know if this is pre hypnosis, because they do actually go for hypnosis, and I think their stories are similar, but with some mild differences.
Variation.
Yeah, so
which is normal because there are two different accounts from two different people with different feelings and observations and stuff like that. So
well,
that's
yeah,
pretty
exactly.
normal.
Yeah, exactly. So, the immediate aftermath and the report to the Air Force, because they contact the Air Force and they also contact NICAP, which is the National Institute of. I wrote it down, but I'll say it later because I don't remember what it is. So this is what they tell the Air Force. So they arrive home at about dawn and assert that they had some odd sensations and impulses that they could not readily explain, such as Betty insisting that their luggage be kept near the back door rather than the main part of their house. Their watches had stopped working and they never worked again. Barney says that the leather strap of his binoculars is torn, although he cannot recall tearing it or it being torn at all. The toes of his best dress shoes are all scraped up and like messed up. Barney says that he is compelled to examine his genitals in the bathroom, although he finds nothing unusual. And of course,
He's a man.
Of course, yeah. He's like, is it still there? It's good. Okay. Although I do have to recall, like, Antonio saying that he was molested by a female alien. So, well, maybe that's what he was feeling. I don't know. They took long showers to remove possible contamination, and then each of them drew a picture about what they observed. So, perplexed, the Hills say that they tried to reconstruct the chronology, is that the word, of events as they witnessed the UFO and drove home. Apparently, though, immediately following the buzzing sounds, their memories become so incomplete and fragmented that they just cannot piece together what happened between first seeing the thing and then finding themselves 35 miles south of where they saw the thing. But they have no explanations at this point. So they sleep for a few hours. Betty wakes up. She places the shoes and the clothing that she had worn during the drive in her closet. And at this time, she observes that the dress is torn at the hem, the zipper, and the lining. And then later, when she goes to retrieve the items from her closet, she notes that there's like a pink powder on the dress. So she puts the dress on her clothesline, and the pink powder blows away. But the dress is so damaged that she decides to throw it away, and then eventually changes her mind and ends up retrieving the dress and hanging it in her closet. Apparently, people have this dress. So over the years, 5 laboratories have conducted chemical and forensic analysis on this dress. What they found on it, I don't know. They don't say. So either they found nothing, but it seems to me that they found something, but they either don't know what it is or they don't want people to know what it is. So, because they don't say. They don't say what it is. So on their car, there were shiny concentric circles in the trunk or on the trunk that hadn't been there the previous day. And Betty and Barney experimented with a compass, and they noted that when they moved the compass close to these spots on the trunk, the needle would whirl around rapidly. And then when they would move it away, it would drop down and be regular again. So I don't know what that means, but So the initial report to the Air Force and NICAP on September 21st, Betty telephones the Pease Air Force Base to report their UFO counter, and apparently they're very fearful that people are going to think they're lunatics. So she actually ends up withholding some of the details. And on September 22nd, Major Paul Henderson telephones the Hills for a more detailed interview. And apparently in Henderson's report, which was dated the 26th of September, he determined that the Hills had probably misidentified the planet Jupiter. I don't know how you could misidentify. I swear I saw a thing filling up my whole windshield. That's the planet Jupiter, ma'am. You're okay. I don't know.
It's Jupiter.
It's just Jupiter, yeah.
Jupiter doesn't mess with your mind.
So this is what he says at first, but it's actually later changed to optical condition, inversion, and insufficient data. And this is a report that you can go and read. I think it's declassified, I'm assuming, and it's report 100-1-61 Air Intelligence Information Record. So if anybody out there really wants to go and read this report, that's what it is. And then this report is actually forwarded to the Project Blue Book, which I don't know if you've heard of that, but this is a project where they pretty much list and categorize every single UFO sighting that is reported to the Air Force. So it's forwarded to the Project Blue Book, which, like I said, it's a research project that the Air Force does. You can Wikipedia it if you're interested in that. A little bit further reading. So, within days of the encounter, Betty borrows a UFO book from the library, and it's written by a retired Marine Corps major, Donald Kehoe, who was also the head of NICAP at that time. And I'm sad I thought I put in what NICAP stands for, but I guess I didn't. I've heard of it. It's a really famous UFO thingy-mabobber. It's a research group also. So on September 26th, Betty wrote to Kehoe. She relates the full story, including the details about the humanoids that her and Barney, or that Barney had observed through the binoculars. And she wrote that she and Barney were considering hypnosis to recall what happened. And her letter to Kehoe was eventually passed on to Walter Webb, a Boston astronomer, and he is also a NICAP member. So on October 21st, Webb meets with the Hills, and this is 1961, of course. In a 6-hour interview, the Hills relate everything that they could remember of the UFO encounter. Barney asserts that he's developed some sort of mental block, and that he suspected that there are some portions of the event that he doesn't wish to remember.
Probably.
Yeah, so he does describe in detail all that he can remember about the craft and the appearance of the somehow not human figures aboard the craft. Webb states that they are telling the truth, and the incident probably occurred exactly as reported, except for some minor uncertainties and technicalities that must be tolerated in any such observations where human judgment is involved, which are things like exact time, length of visibility, apparent sizes of objects and occupants, distance and heights of which, of course, if you don't know precisely, I can't say if somebody's 6 foot tall, you know what I mean? Like, it would be impossible. Right. And I might think he's 6 foot, but you might think he's 5'7", you know, so.
Right.
So 10 days. I found what
NICAP stands for.
Oh yeah, tell us.
It's the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena.
Thank you. It's weird because I thought I had copied and pasted that into my little thingy, but I guess I didn't. So, thanks. NICAP. Have you ever heard of MUFON? Tristan?
No.
So, that's actually the group that Scully goes to, and it's full of other women that have had a similar experience as her when she has that chip in her neck. On the X-Files, of course. Yeah. So that is an actual group, and it is, I of course don't know what it stands for either, but I do know that that's an actual group of abductees that get together and tell their stories, I think. So I should have put that in here too, but I didn't. But that has nothing to do with this. I just was wondering if you'd ever heard of them. So
no, I haven't actually heard of them, but I remember that episode. I remember when she goes to those other women.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And didn't Scully have an alien baby, didn't she?
So she has a baby, and the aliens want that baby because they're thinking that it's their baby, so they want it. I think is how the show is going. Okay. However, if you recall, there were records in that weird mine or whatever that her and Mulder go to that show that she was part of a government experiment and the baby was implanted in her, I guess. I don't know how to say that. But
I remember where they find the cigarette smoking guy.
Yeah. Dude, we watched too much X-Files, I think. Anyway, like I know right. Like all the plots. I'm like remember when they did that and that and that? Okay. So 10 days after the UFO encounter, Betty began to have a series of vivid dreams. They continue for 5 successive nights, and never in her memory had she recalled dreams in such detail and intensity. But after 5 nights, they stop abruptly and they never return. They occupy her mind and her thoughts all day long, and then she finally, I don't know why she wouldn't tell him to begin with, but she mentions them to Barney, who is sympathetic but not too concerned, because I think that Barney doesn't want to believe or acknowledge that something strange happened to them. He probably just wants to forget it. And she actually never mentions the dreams to him again after that. But she did start writing down the details of her dreams. So in one dream, she and Barney encounter a roadblock and men who surround their car. She loses consciousness but struggles to regain it. She then realizes that she's being forced by 2 small men to walk in a forest in the nighttime, and of seeing Barney walking behind her. Though when she calls out to him, he seems like he's in a trance or might be sleepwalking. These men are about 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches tall and wore matching blue uniforms with caps that are similar to those worn by military cadets. They appeared nearly human with black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, and bluish lips, and their skin is a grayish color. So in these dreams, Betty and Barney and the men walk up the ramp to a disc-shaped craft of metallic appearance. Once inside, Barney and Betty are separated. She protests and was told by the man she called the leader that if she and Barney were examined together, it would take much longer to conduct the exams. And so she and Barney are then taken to separate rooms. Betty then dreams that a new man, similar to the others, entered to conduct her exam with the leader, and Betty calls this new man the examiner, and said he had a pleasant, calm manner. Though the leader and the examiner spoke to her in English, the examiner's command of the language seemed imperfect, and she had a difficult time understanding him. The examiner tells Betty that he would conduct a few tests to note the differences between humans and the craft's occupants. He seats her in a chair, and a bright light is shown on her. The man cut off a lock of Betty's hair. He examined her eyes, her ears, mouth, throat, teeth, hands, and he actually takes trimmings of her fingernails. He then examines her legs and her feet, and the man uses a dull knife similar to a letter opener to scrape some of her skin into what she said something like a cellophane. He then tests her nervous system and thrusts a needle into her navel, which causes Betty agonizing pain. And when this happens, the leader actually waves his hands in front of her eyes and the pain vanishes, which I think is a super cool trick, honestly.
Right.
So the examiner leaves the room where Betty is engaged in conversation with the leader. She picks up a book with a row of strange symbols, and the leader tells her that she can actually take the book home with her. And she also asks where he came from, and he pulls down an instructional map dotted with stars. And I think that this is the map that Betty later draws from. So in Betty's dream account, the man begins escorting the hills from the ship when a disagreement broke out. The leader then informs Betty that she actually cannot keep the book, stating that they had decided that the other men didn't want her to even remember the encounter. So at this point, Betty insists that no matter what they did to her, she will eventually recall the details of the events. So she and Barney...
So I wonder if that's what her dreams are, is the like memories.
Yeah, I wonder if they're like coming back to her. I don't know, because I like in a minute I will talk about what happens under hypnosis. So I wonder how close it is to that. So she and Barney are taken to their car, where the leader suggests that they wait to watch the craft's departure. They do so and resume driving. So that's her dreams. They only lasted for 5 days. They're extremely weird. So Simon, who is a doctor, I'm hoping, begins hypnotizing the hills on January 4th, 1964. He hypnotized Betty and Barney several times, and the sessions last until June 6, 1964. So several months. Simon conducted the sessions on Barney and Betty separately, so they could not overhear one another's recollections. And at the end of each session, he would reinstate the amnesia, although that's not really proven if that's something you can even do. Although I've heard that if you're hypnotized, you don't necessarily remember what you've said during hypnosis. So,
Right.
so Barney's sessions of hypnosis are... he recalls witnessing non-human figures in which he actually gets quite emotional, and it's punctuated with expressions of fear, emotional outbursts, and incredulity. Barney said that due to his fear, he kept his eyes closed for much of the abduction and physical examination. And based on these early responses, Simon told Barney that he would not remember the hypnosis sessions until he was certain he could remember them without being further traumatized. So under hypnosis, as was consistent with his conscious recall, Barney reported that the binocular strap had broken when he ran from the UFO back to his car. He recalls driving his car away from the UFO, but that afterwards he felt irresistibly compelled to pull off the road and drive into the woods. He eventually sights 6 men standing in the dirt road. The car stalls, and 3 of the men approach the car. They tell Barney not to fear them. He's still anxious, however, and reported to the leader... And he reported that the leader told Barney to close his eyes. While hypnotized, Barney said, "I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes." I don't know what that means, but it sounds freaky AF.
For real.
Yeah. So Barney describes the beings as generally similar to Betty's hypnotic recollection, not her dream recollection, but her hypnosis. The beings often stared into his eyes, said Barney, with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, Barney said things like, oh, those eyes, they're in my brain, first from his hypnosis session, and I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. From his second hypnosis session is when he said that. And all I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes. I don't know what's going on. It's freaking me out. So Barney relates that he and Betty were taken into the disc-shaped craft where they were separated. He was escorted into a room by 3 men and told to lie on a small rectangular exam table. Unlike Betty, Barney's narrative of the exam was less detailed as he continued to keep his eyes closed for most of the exam. A cup-like device was placed over his genitals. He did not experience an orgasm, which is oddly specific. Though Barney thought that a sperm sample had in fact been taken. The men scraped his skin, peered in his ears and mouth. A thin tube or cylinder was inserted into his anus and quickly removed. Someone felt his spine and seemed to be counting his vertebrae. Betty reported a conversation with the leader that she understood in English. Barney said that he heard them speaking in a mumbling language he did not understand, yet he also understood them in English. Betty also mentioned this detail, which is weird. The few times they communicated with him, Barney said it seemed to be thought transference, and at that time he was unfamiliar with the word telepathy. Both Betty and Barney state that they hadn't observed the being's mouth moving when they communicated with them in English, so I'm assuming it was all telepathic. Barney recalls being escorted from the ship, taken to his car, and in a daze he watches the ship leave. Barney remembered a light appearing on the road, and he said, "Oh no, not again." He recalled Betty's speculation that the light might have been the moon, though the moon had set several hours beforehand. He also stated that he attempted to produce a code-like buzzing sound, which seemed to strike the car's trunk a second time by driving from side to side and stopping and starting the vehicle. His attempt was unsuccessful. I don't know how he produces buzzing sound, but I don't know.
I don't know. How weird.
It's so weird. Like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like I want to believe these people because what reason do they have to lie? But maybe they just crazy AF. We don't know. But I do think it's weird for crazy people to suffer the exact same delusions. I don't know how prevalent that is.
Right, but I don't think it's unheard of for somebody to suggest that that's what they saw and the other person jumped on board.
Right, okay. I mean, especially like if you have this experience and y'all are married and you talk about it afterwards, of course your experiences are going to be similar probably. So
right, because now you've incorporated the other person's details of that into with yours, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So Betty's account is similar to the events of her 5 dreams about the UFO abduction, but there were some notable differences, mainly pertaining to her capture and release. The technology on the craft was different. The short men had significantly different physical appearance from that of her dreams. The sequential order of the abduction event was also different from Betty's dream account. Barney's and Betty's memories and hypnotic regression were consistent with one another, but contradicted some of the information in Betty's dreams. So, of course, they were similar, but not exactly the same, which kind of actually freaks me out. But in a way, it doesn't, because when you're hypnotized, you're in like a dreamlike state anyways.
Right.
So, Betty exhibits considerable emotional distress during her capture and examination, and Simon had to end one session early because tears are flowing down her cheeks and she is very distressed, so he doesn't want to continue. Simon gives Betty the post-hypnotic suggestion that she could sketch a copy of the star map that she later described as a 3-dimensional projection similar to a hologram. Eventually she does, and although she said the map had many stars, she drew only those that stood out in her memory. So the map consisted of 12 prominent stars connected by lines and 3 lesser ones that formed a distinctive triangle. She She said she was told the stars connected by solid lines formed trade routes. So he showed her a map of trade.
Like roads?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the dashed lines were less traveled stars. So after the hypnosis session, Simon speculates that Barney's recollection of the UFO encounter was possibly a fantasy inspired by Betty's dreams. Simon thinks that it was the most reasonable and consistent explanation, because obviously he doesn't believe that they were abducted by aliens. Barney, however, rejects this idea, saying that while their memories were consistent in some regards, there were also portions of both of their narratives that were unique to each other. Barney is apparently now ready to accept the fact that they had been abducted by the occupants of the UFO, though he never embraces it as fully as Betty does. Though the Hills and Simon disagree about the nature of the case, they all concurred that the hypnosis sessions were effective, and the Hills actually no longer experience anxiety or torment by this experience. So at least it helped them get better. I mean, that's the upside of the whole thing as well. So afterwards, Simon writes an article about the Hills for the Journal of Psychiatric Opinion, explaining his conclusions that the case was a singular psychological aberration. Publicity after the hypnosis sessions were, the Hills went back to their regular lives, and they were very willing to discuss the encounter with friends and family and researchers, but they made no effort to seek publicity. So obviously they weren't, making up this story to be famous, so.
Right.
So on October 25th, 1965, a front page story in the Boston Traveler asked, UFO chiller, did they seize couple? And reporter John H. Luttrell of the Traveler had allegedly been given an audio tape recording of the lecture the Hills had made in Quincy Center in late 63. Luttrell learned that the Hills had undergone hypnosis with Simon, and he also obtained notes from confidential interviews the Hills had given to UFO investigators. So he's obviously publishing all these things without consent of the Hills, which is kind of messed up.
Right.
So there's a lot of things about the Hills. They've made movies about them. There's been TV shows and all kinds of things like that. So they were famous, even though they weren't seeking fame. They did end up famous. So.
Right.
So later in life, Betty claims to have seen UFOs a number of times after the initial abduction, and she actually became a celebrity with the UFO community. I don't think Barney really had much to do with it after that, but it doesn't say much if he did or not. So February 25th, 1969, Barney dies of a cerebral hemorrhage. He's only 46. Betty died of cancer, which I actually think is weird that he died so young, even though it was a brain hemorrhage, but still, it's weird. Betty dies of cancer in 2004, and she never remarried. There's so much skepticism about the Hills story, leading some people have actually said that these were hallucinations brought on by being an interracial couple in the 60s. So Barney was black, Betty was white. He was like this huge civil rights activist. She was obviously also involved with civil rights movements, and they reject the fact that they were stressed because they were an interracial couple. They always said that their friends and their family embraced them. They never had an issue with anything like that. So I don't really think that's what it was. But, others,
I don't think so either. I think there may be an explanation, but we'll never know.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think that random people have random hallucinations. You know what I mean? Like, either you've shown signs or
Right.
symptoms that you're a little bit woohoo, or Like, I don't think you just have one hallucination in your life and then that's it. Like, it's just, I don't know. Other people do say that the hypnosis may have uncovered memories of a Twilight Zone episode that had aired 2 weeks prior to the hypnosis, which I actually think is really funny and could be an interesting explanation as to, did they watch the Twilight Zone? It doesn't say if they
Right. I don't know. It is kind of weird, but I mean, there is so much phenomena out there that we don't have any explanation for.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like take the Bennington Triangle for example. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Or like where people will experience something in a certain place, but nobody ever experiences that again there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I don't really believe in aliens, but I'm not discounting their story. I mean, in their mind, it may have happened to them for real.
Well, I mean,
You know what I mean? But it may be explained by some other kind of phenomena.
Well, right. I mean, maybe they did have a weird hallucination driving down the road, Like, who knows? Who knows? I think it's interesting that Betty's dreams kind of do correlate with her hypnosis. But like I said, if you're having these dreams, it's obviously in your subconscious anyway. So I myself
Right.
Don't necessarily believe in hypnosis. So there you go with that. Only 1 in 3 people are able to be hypnotized, and you have to believe that you're going to be hypnotized in order for it to work. So I don't know. I don't know. It all
Right.
seems very strange to
Yeah,
me.
because I don't necessarily believe in that either. It does seem very strange. I don't know. There's so much. I don't know. It's just like the first 2 guys. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe. You know what I mean?
I mean, was Antonio plowing his field in the middle of the night and abducted by an alien? I don't know. In order
I
to
don't either.
birth an alien human crossbreed.
Hybrid,
I don't even know. Yeah, it's a hybrid. I don't know.
And my question is why? Why? It begs the big question. Why would they want to anyway? If they are evidently a superior species, why would they want to mix with us? You know what I mean?
I don't even
I mean,
know.
they have mastered like interplanetary travel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
there are some theories, Tristan, that aliens were actually the first inhabitants of this earth, and that they created humans as slaves to mine gold for them, or mine precious metals even for them. And I'm not joking. And the same people claim that I don't know if you are, I am, that RH negative people are actual remnants of these slave race of people.
I am RH, and I actually have had done a lot of research on my blood type.
Yeah.
Because it is very rare.
Yes.
And and I have heard that we are actually, like, it's considered alien blood type because it's not a natural blood type.
It's foreign. It's a very small. It's weird that we both are,
right?
But we are sisters, so I mean maybe that's something. But it is extremely rare to be Rh negative, and there's something that Andrew always points out to me that how many men are Rh negative? So they know when women are Rh negative because they test for that when you're pregnant because it could be fatal to the baby.
Yes.
So I don't know how many men are Rh negative. That's interesting. Is it only women?
Well, see, well, our mother is not, and it's weird.
Interesting.
I think that we got it from our dad's side of the family because our grandpa was O positive,
Right.
but I believe that our dad is O negative,
Interesting.
which is what I am.
I'm AB negative, so there you go. Although your blood,
it's It's weird.
Right. It's weird, though, because as far as I know, your blood type doesn't necessarily have to do anything with being Rh negative or not. So I don't know how much that...
It doesn't. It doesn't. And I
Right.
don't know how that it becomes negative to begin with. But I've done research because, like, on my blood type, because I am O negative, I have universal blood, which means I can give blood to anybody in the world. I don't even have to match them or anything.
Yeah.
But I can only receive a negative blood because if anything else goes in my body, it will kill me.
Right. Did.
So, and they say that, like, people with negative Rh factors, they have less sensitivity to pain inside their body, although skin pain bothers them a great deal. Like, so, like, surface pain is worse for them than internal pain. They are less, they hate the heat. They do not do well in the heat, but they're almost impervious to the cold.
Dude, I hate that
And
heat.
that is totally me.
I despise
Me
being
too,
hot.
I'm awful.
But I don't mind the cold.
I
I've
do
never
too.
minded the cold. So there you go.
Me neither. I actually love the cold.
I do too. Colder the better. I love
But
the
it's
snow.
and it's weird, like, just how, like, those genetics even work, period.
Yeah, I think it's a mystery. I don't think that they really know how or why people end up Rh negative, but it's interesting.
I don't think they do there. I actually read an article that was titled O negative, the alien blood type.
Yes, you alien freak. Just kidding. That's not nice.
I know it's weird because negative is not a natural blood type, so
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, it's weird. The whole thing's weird. Alien abductions are weird. I don't know.
I like it. I was very interesting. I learned a lot of stuff, and I heard some really weird accounts. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that I'm a believer, but it does bring up some questions. You know what I mean? Because I look at where I live. I live very, very close to Area 51.
Right.
You know what I mean? We see weird shit all the time, man.
Totally.
I'm not going to say it's aliens, but because right by Area 51 is Creech Air Force Base, which actually developed the drone.
Right.
So no telling what they develop out there. You know what I mean? It could be
right.
numerous things that we see, but it is definitely odd.
I think there's a lot of stuff that's odd, and a big part of me has to wonder if it's just the government. Like, I don't know. But I don't know. I've always been fascinated by alien abductions, mainly because how do aliens choose, if it were real, this is really happening, how are they choosing the people that they're abducting? Like, why do they choose Antonio? Why do they choose Betty and Barney? Like, it's just like, Betty and Barney, by all accounts, seem like they're really, like, respectable, they're upright citizens, they're educated, they're not like these simpletons, but neither was Antonio, even though people assumed he was. So did aliens also assume that he was a simpleton and nobody would believe him? Did people think that, or did the aliens believe that people wouldn't believe the Hills because they were an interracial couple? Like, who knows the reasoning behind these things? I don't know. It's very strange to me.
And it is weird. Because the first guy, the George guy, he definitely seemed like a simpleton. I mean, he had a education.
I think he was a psychopath, honestly. I don't know.
Right, like, his story is very weird, and like to even have names involved in it. You know what I mean?
I think when you start saying that you see an aircraft
why?
and it's... What? Why? Why? What? Why? Why?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I just, for me, it's not something that is plausible, because why would they want us? By all accounts, they're an extremely superior race. You know what I mean? Why?
If they were involved somehow, like, let's just even say, like, prehistory, so historic, like, prehistory, if they were involved in our genetics at some point, maybe they're trying to see if those genetics are still carrying on through generations, you know, like, who knows what they're doing, really? Who knows?
That's true, but then you would think that the abduction stories would, where they are prevalent, but then you would think that they would be more prevalent, and in like say 1 or 2 in every 100 people would be abducted.
Now, honestly, though, if you were abducted by an alien, would you tell people about it?
I run a paranormal podcast. I think that I would.
Okay, I also would, but let's think of other people, like normal people. Would they tell people about it? I don't know. People might think they're crazy, so I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I would think that people would think that they're less crazy nowadays because it's so widely believed.
Well, it's certainly more than in the 50s or the 40s, probably. I think it's more acceptable
Right.
to say that you've been abducted by aliens, even if it's not true. People are like, okay, that happened to you, great.
That's great. Good on you. Right.
Good job. I don't know. But
I don't know.
It is what it is.
It's
I
just
guess.
weird. There's so many. There's more questions than answers, and I don't like being left with more questions than answers.
And unfortunately, this is one of those things that I don't think we'll ever have the answers to. So it's not something you can investigate. I mean, you can be like the MUFON people or the NICAP people, where you have all these documented cases, and you're constantly searching for more. But you can't, unless it happens to you, you cannot go out and investigate these things. Like, I don't know. So
Right. I don't know. It's just weird. I'm not discounting that there is no other people in the universe, because the universe is so big.
right.
And just like in the Bible, it says that God created Adam and Eve, right? That they were the first created. It doesn't say that they were the only created.
True.
Just
That's true.
like He created the Earth, the solar system, and our planets, and He created the universe.
Right.
How do we know that we were the first time that He created something like this?
True. Or
You
the
know what I mean?
only. I mean, it doesn't say that he
Or the
only
there could have been
created the
more
Earth.
afterwards.
Right.
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 I mean, it
There
may
could have
not,
been. Right.
maybe the first time, because our Bible says that it was the first time, and He saw that it was good. But because He saw that it was good, maybe He created more with different types of people and different types of things. And these people are more advanced than we are in their technological senses. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we don't know. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I just don't believe that they're the little green men that everybody says that they are, or the gray guys, or you know what I mean. I don't believe that that's how they look necessarily.
It's funny because I think that. I think we're gonna end this soon. We've been on here for a while, but I think that the most prevalent is the gray men. I think everybody that sees aliens, they don't necessarily think they're green. They say they're gray, they're small, and they actually are accounts of these gray men living among people. They somehow disguise themselves to look like people, and I don't know. So
Yeah, see, I think that those lean more toward like demonic things, honestly.
And maybe that's what it is, just all around. I mean, maybe it is just demonic, and they want people to believe that they are from outer space or whatever, but it's really just a demonic presence that is doing something really awful to you that they don't want you to know about. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know.
Well,
But all in all, it was a really good case.
I've always been interested in alien
extremely
abductions. So. Anyways, I guess if anybody out there watching has any alien abduction stories, you let us know. You email that to us. I've been adding our email to our videos so that people can send an email if they have a story, not necessarily about alien abductions, but if, cryptoids or ghosts or shadow people, anything, we want to know, and we might actually tell your
Anything
story.
that is paranormal. Right.
Correct.
We would actually like to. I have been checking our email box every day, and we haven't received one. So come on, guys, get together. We want to know.
Yeah, let us know.
But you guys can follow us on Facebook at Rebecca Tristan, Instagram at occultus_service, Twitter at occultusservice, and Gmail at occultussoribus@gmail.com.
And of course, like
Let us know.
always, all those links are in the bottom of our videos descriptions. Every single time I post a video, they are there. So check those out. Follow us, like us, share us. Let everybody know that you heard about the coolest ParaSisters ever, literally and figuratively.
Yes. Yes.
And make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you get all of our latest content. And I guess we're done here, right? So
it's great content too.
it's fantastic. We have so many videos up too. Like, I look at it and I'm always surprised. This is our 20th video technically, but we did 2 parts of the those missing people. Yeah, I was like, I can't remember their name. Those 1 people that were missing. So there's tons of stuff to watch, and make sure you check out our podcast, the ParaSisters. You can find those pretty much anywhere that you can find podcasts, except for Apple. We're so sorry. I'm gonna start having.
We're waiting for that Apple person to comment and let us know. We'll put in the work.
I know, really. You're like, seriously, let us know, or you're never gonna listen to it on Apple, because it's a lot of work. Yeah. So anyway, do all that, and I guess we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes, and you guys all stay creepy.
Peace.